What is that? Oh, it says my name in the corner. I didn't do that. Whatever. Man, what a gift it is to be able to get up in the morning, have your own thing. Real quick, anybody can build this studio. It'll cost you $200. The lights, you can get a lighting kit from Amazon for $100. This is $50 worth of wallpaper, some paint, and just stuff that I like. I earned that belt. This is my purple belt. That's a little brain. My wife founded a thing. Anybody can make this. And when you have this, you can hang out and you can discuss anything you like. Business, titles, and rankings and contracts and shit, it's not my thing, right? But there's so much of it going on right now. I've started to just look at it the way that I look at many things, analytically. The art of business, sport, art, all of these things are very similar from a strategic standpoint, from an art of war standpoint, from a book of 5 rings standpoint, from a strategy standpoint, from a martial arts standpoint. All of these things are very similar in the way that they sort of play out in the real world. This is, I have done something that I would not normally do, and I've made just some little banners to try to keep myself. I love to just sit and chat, and a lot of my audience seems to enjoy it too. Other people are like, dude, you just meander all over the place. But hey, you want somebody more organized? The internet's full of those people. But I thought I would give myself a few topics which to look at today and try to combine them and connect them. Let's see if this works for me. So here's a few of the things I want to discuss today. Francis Ngannou, John Jones, interim titles. Okay? You notice it's Francis Ngannou and John Jones. That's obviously logically the fight that in a world of the best versus the best, and even the most popular versus the most popular, that's the fight, right? So why would that not be a fight? What logical strategic reasons could there be for that to do something less appealing, less attractive, less valuable, earn less money? Why would that be? Okay, we're going to look at historical business strategies. So business strategy is not all that different from a combat strategy or a military strategy for that matter. If you're just joining me, I'm going over what we will attempt to discuss today because I'm not always the most organized, so I made these little purple banners to keep myself on track. Business strategy is very similar to any strategy, right? Strategy is creating the steps, the process through which you will make decisions when faced with particular things. So we can all understand if you were Canada's not invading anybody ever, but let's say that you were Canada and you wanted to go and move and take some land from Europe, how would you behave? Well, if you were Lyft and you wanted to take some business land from Uber, how would you behave? If you were Bellator, if you were the PFL, if you were bare knuckle, if you were the UFC, how would you behave? How does Coke behave related to Pepsi? It's a very similar things. These are connected to strategic things. This one's a little less, a little less sexy. Also, I'm not supposed to talk about this a lot, but hey, this is what you can do when you have your own YouTube channel. $1 billion lawsuits as they relate to the UFC and what they mean. All this shit is connected, by the way. These are not separate topics. I'm laying these out, and then we're going to connect them all. That brings us to Bellator, PFL, bare knuckle, etc. Have you asked yourself, this will come up in our conversation, have you asked yourself, where did bare knuckle come from? I commentate BKB in Europe. There's BKFC in the US. I just commentated Gamebred FC, bare knuckle MMA. Where did this come from? Why does it exist? It's cool, right? I'll give you a little hint. There's this particular audience who likes edgier things, slightly outside the mainstream things. UFC is now the mainstream. So if you're the mainstream, there will be room for something that's edgier. Everybody's wearing suits and talking in code, and the lights and everything's the same all the time. Somebody's going to do something a little different. Conor McGregor is a big part of this whole thing. I know when we're looking at, hey, Francis Ngannou, heavyweight title, Cyril Gane, Derek Lewis, John Jones. What the fuck does Conor McGregor have to do with that? A lot. Conor McGregor has to do a lot with it. And then this is the thing. This has a lot to do with how all of this stuff is happening. And like I said, everything here is connected. Everything in all of this is connected, from Francis Ngannou and titles, through business, through lawsuits, what's going on else in the world, many of which craft beer is when you put all the craft beer together, it's more popular than Budweiser. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know the numbers for that, but it's very, all the craft beer in the world has an audience that has taken a lot from Budweiser, Conor McGregor and of course Jake Paul. So this is going to be a little bit of our overview where we're going to explore today. Let me first lay out any biases that may enter your mind here. Biases are very important. All humans have bias, okay? So when you're watching fighting, you go, oh, my favorite commentator, and I'm just saying commentators because it's something we talk about, is Dominic Cruz because he's unbiased. Dominic Cruz and all other humans are biased. It is the nature of being human. Don't seek somebody, you love Chael Sonnen because he's not biased. Chael Sonnen's biased. All humans are biased. This is the nature of being a human. We are biased by our life experience, the things we're exposed to, our opinions. So I will expose any of my connection to all of this quickly so that you can take into account any bias that I might have. So I am gainfully employed by a UFC broadcast partner. So that could affect me. I am paid to talk about the UFC now. So that's one particular bias. Ideally, fortunately for me, I don't have to talk about any of this shit. I don't have to talk about what does this mean to the rankings? None of that shit. I analyze just the fighting, which is the way I like it. The company I work for, TSN, I love that job too. So, that it will affect my bias. However, in full disclosure, it's maybe about 10% of my income, right? So it's not like, okay, can't say anything. Now, other bias, I also do a lot of Bellator stuff. And to be honest, my experience, I have many friends in Bellator and the business of Bellator. In the UFC, zero. Don't get along with anybody that works there. And in fact, this is maybe of interest to you. I had a lot of friends that worked there. Matt De La Rosa, Anthony Petosa, Ant Evans. These were all, Matt, just a whole bunch of people. All of them are gone. Why? Why would all the people? Now, it's nothing to do with me. But all the people that work within a company that seem to be a particular type of person might like them, they're all gone. Is that a coincidence or is there a different structure happening? Anyways, not a big fan of that company. However, also in the realm of bias, I have had executives at the UFC go to my bosses at TSN and complain about me and the way certain things I did on the internet, which is damaging to my career. So all of those biases together, I might want to say something, but I hate those guys because there's some assholes in there that I didn't get along with, but also that could damage my work. All of them kind of wash. If you're being totally honest, all of them kind of wash. I think I'm about as balanced of ability to look at this as humanly possible. Also, although assholes have gone to my bosses and complained about me from the UFC before, they have so much going on now, nobody rational would waste their time on something small like this. So I feel okay about that. Anyways, biases are outlined. So let's look at, again, the topic that first came up here, the first thing that was brought up and that sort of stimulated any conversation like this recently is Francis Ngannou, UFC champion, wins it by knocking out Stipe Miocic, who was considered, one of the greatest ever, and is very, very legit. 2 wins over Dan Cormier, who's also super one of the greatest. And this is real. This is real. This is the heavyweight champion of the world. Doesn't want to fight or cannot fight till August or September, very short period of time. They're like, well, fuck you. We're going to make an interim title. This is the beginning of the conversation for a lot of people. And people are like, is this fair? Fuck fair. Fair has nothing to do with it. Do I think it's fair? That's ridiculous. That's not part of it. To really understand things like this. So the conversation that we'll often have, is this right? Is it wrong? Can you believe it, man? This Conor McGregor tied up the belt for this long, and yet this guy, because he's black, we can throw 1,000 things into that, but none of that matters. To really understand often, and this I think useful, to understand what's happening, sometimes you have to really, I'll put up some titles soon. This will be this. Also, we're going to have some questions. We're going to have some questions coming up and we're going to take them. But for now, I'm going to lay out my banners, right? So we know. So to really understand what's happening often in the world, and this is super valuable for everybody's sort of happiness in life and your ability to kind of feel like you have some influence in your own life is not to react to the first layer stuff, right? Oh my God, this is crazy. Francis this and Cyril Gahn is my guy too. And so is Derek Lewis. So don't be mad at those guys at all. It's not their fault. You have to go layers beneath and look at the mechanism of so you basically are looking at the water, right? So Francis Ngannou, John Jones, Cyril Gahn, you, me, we're the lobsters in it. You got to start analyzing the water that we're in, okay? Like you got to look at the mechanism of what's happening. So you got to go deeper. So the UFC, this is why we go and we pull into this one. They're being sued right now by a bunch of fighters. What are they suing them about? They're saying that they practiced business strategies that were unfair to fighters that ultimately created a scenario in which fighters did not have control over their own careers, right? A lot of places in the world feel like that. And when people argue with them, like, well, I don't have control over my career. Well, too fucking bad. These guys are the elite of the elite and they believe they should. How does that affect this? Well, the issue isn't that we're going to sue you because you behave this way. The issue is that this behavior is the result. It's nobody's mad you have a monopoly, and not you. I mean the UFC or Coca-Cola or fucking iPhone. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Nobody's mad if you have a monopoly. Nobody's out to get you. The reason a monopoly or monopolistic behavior is bad is because it allows people to behave in ways that are seemingly unbalanced, right? So when you're like, hey man, take it or leave it. Here's the contract, take it or leave it. Well, sign this or walk away. All of those behaviors, all of that style of negotiating, all of it is predicated on the fact that you have all the leverage, you have all the control. You want a title fight or not? You're going to get $400,000. Oh, you don't want it? Somebody else can have it, right? That works best when you control everything. Right. And again, I'm not mad at anybody. I'm attempting to look at this from as honestly and just, simply and as if it was a fight, as if these were low kicks and as if this was the strategy and as we're managing assets like our energy and our focus. We're looking at this the same way. So when we behave in such a way that we can tell people what to do and they don't have an influence on it, that's what you sue somebody for. That's what you complain is an unfair business relationship. It's not like you bought Strikeforce, we're mad. It's like nobody cares if you bought Strikeforce or you bought RC Cola or somebody did something. Like it's not the behavior of the business, is what it allows or what it creates. It's the dynamic that it creates. So the UFC still behaves as if they do have this monopoly for which they are being sued, right? And although they do not, and that's where the friction comes in, right? Only 5 years ago, 90% of the audience would be like, Dana's right. Francis is wrong. Why is he so ungrateful? Who the fuck is this manager? Fuck these people. Fine, give it to Cyril Gahn. If you don't want it, he can have it. But all of a sudden, that's not the case. And so it's a more difficult time. And now I'm looking at it I'm analyzing the UFC is the fighter in this scenario that I'm looking at positively. What do they do, right? And why is this happening? Why is there many fronts on which there are trouble? And what is this guy? Literally, if enough people that have nothing to lose stand up and say, wait a second, this is total horseshit. By the way, Anderson Silva, come over here. You'll make way more money for what would be in many ways considered an easier fight. And we will push to your stuff. We will make you a focus, not our brand. This is all the strategy with which the UFC used to help build a very successful business, which we all enjoy and we all like the fights and all of it's cool. Strategies don't last forever. Business strategies, as the world around you changes, you have to change your strategy. But what is more common, much more common, is you actually double down even as the world changes. And you actually speed up the turbulence with which what happens, right? I worked for a television channel, a 24-hour fighting channel. That channel was not doing well figuring out how to transfer the inevitable truth that the world was going to move to, and already at the time was, and now, of course, it is, moved to YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They were bad at that. And they wanted the world to still be the way it was. We have people pay us I'm not saying that. I just a company I worked for once. We have people pay us for cable. We want that. We don't want this. And they actually doubled down to the point that they bought television channels and cut their digital creation, despite the fact that that was the inevitable way the world was going, right? This is behavior you see often from large corporations. Soon as they begin to resist change, turbulence starts, right? And it's never too late. And this is a life thing. It is, and something that was in a musical my wife was once in, called Kinky Boots. It is never when you're going down the wrong road, it is never too late to turn back. And that's often what happens. You like, oh fuck, we cut this thing. We made a strategic error that, we are now on the wrong fork because we're cutting digital or we're still behaving in a particular and oppressive way. And you actually go further and further. And no time is it the wrong thing to go, cut our losses. We made an error. Let's restructure this. Okay. There are many topics. If you're wondering why Jake Paul was on there are many topics here today that we are going to try to connect all of them in the fragmented way that my martial arts analyst brain works. Right. I will also be taking comments and questions sooner than later because I'm going to get myself tangled here and you guys will be able to bring me back. So there's a very important fact here. I didn't actually create this banner, but I'm going to do it now because it's super important. No, I'm not going to write it. Here it is. The current business plan of this particular sports league only works if the fighters are underpaid. Now, I'm not saying anything crazy here. I'm not talking out of turn. That's just factually true. Doesn't mean I couldn't change it. Doesn't mean I couldn't go. But the current business plan, as you lay it out and say, here's what we do, here's where we spend, here's the bottom line of all these things, here's the pay, here's our overhead, here's travel, here's it's the profit, etc. That plan works now with the fighters being paid a small amount. The current plan will not work if you just suddenly say, well, fighters should get 45% of things. You'd have to literally just start again. I'm going to need that because that's actually part of my rare notes that I made. Actually, I don't really need it. So we're flying solo. The plan doesn't work if you start paying these guys more. And that's of vital importance to the whole trying to make sense of it. Why would they do that? Francis is a great champion. Why doesn't Derek Lewis just fight Francis? Why don't they wait till September? All of these things. The current business plan only works if they are paid this small amount to maintain. Now, so there are two very large scale choices one can make at that point. Okay, then we'll change the business plan. It's a changing world, changing audience, many different factors influencing how the world is working right now, like these factors. All of these factors are affecting how our business plan works, so we must change the business plan. Or, fuck you, we have to keep controlling it this way, right? We must stay on the point of control. So, fuck you, we're doing this. To do that, what does that look like? That looks like what you see right now. That is a company having resistance against their business plan in a changing environment, who is saying, fuck you, we like our business plan, and we'd rather keep it than change a lot of things, including giving these fucking fighters what they deserve, what this guy is saying they deserve, what this guy went out and proved they could get, what these guys are now offering to people, what this thing is now giving us shit about. We've got to change our historical business strategy, or else we're going to end up making interim titles and not having fights like Francis Ngannou and John Jones. See the way I did all that? Holy fuck, that kind of worked, right? Kind of worked. All of these things are happening saying, guys, it's time we have to fucking change this. We didn't even write in audience opinion, all of these things, negative perspective, shrinking, whatever, all of the particular effects that happen when there's a movement against you, right? Again, I exposed any biases I may have from my dislike of in some of the interiors of the company. And let me say, I really like Dana. Some of this dislike comes from Dana saying, I want to hire you immediately you're moving to LA with your wife, come down and work for us. You're going to be on all our pre and post shows. And then they put me into some system with some executives that I don't fucking know, and they don't fucking know me. And to their defense, they're like, oh, fuck, who did Dana bring me? Some fucking idiot with messy hair who says, Bank, fuck this. Slow played me until I say, go fuck yourself. That biases me unfairly against their company. However, again, when balancing my bias, I also get paid to analyze the beautiful fights that this company makes for a broadcast partner. And but I also work also for some competitors where I really like the people, but also I'm frightened of being fucking reprimanded and attacked at my job by these same executives. So those different biases all sway me to, I think, end up somewhere in the middle and be able to just look analytically at what the fuck we're saying, right? This is a changing world with more stresses coming in, and the option becomes, do we restructure this whole thing, end up getting the audience on our side, getting a whole bunch of fucking goodwill, undermining some of our competitors, showing that this guy wasn't, a one-off, telling this guy to go fuck himself, and getting the best fights we can get now instead of other fights. And again, Cyril Gane is a badass. Cyril Gane is like awesome. I commentated his very first 3-4 fights. They're on Fight Pass. And Derek Lewis is awesome. That's a great fight. That's a great fight. Just, you don't have to fuck Francis over it. So you can restructure all of this, but what does that mean? Well, now instead of paying whatever, I don't know, I'm inventing numbers, 400 million, we got to pay 900 million. I'm just, again, total fabrication of numbers. Just a lot more, which means we have to cut people. We might have to cut staff. What about our executives? When you go and you see Justin James have to bet his own money on himself, and you go into that fucking UFC headquarters, and you go into those executives' office, and you see, how how many punches you guys took? Fucking 0. And you go into the executive wing behind the thing with all the security and all that stuff, and you're like, wait a second, this doesn't make any fucking sense. Well, all that would have to change, right? A lot of shit would have to change, but that's business. So again, if we try to look at it, balancing positive and negative biases and just be analytical about it, are as we look at the world, all of these things affecting us, if this was our company, all of these things affecting us, what can we do? We can stay the same and fight, or we can change. And they're like, we'll stay the same and fight. Fuck you, Francis Ngannou's manager. We're going to fight you. We're going to try to, that's another weakness we don't have up here. Once upon a time, they could control the message. Really important. See it in politics, see it in news, you see it on the control the message. Francis, and they try this a lot, and I hate this. And again, I really like Dana. I like the way this guy, I love the single-minded, driven dreamers, right? I get it. But when it's like, oh, does John Jones really want to fight? That was controlling the message before, because these fucking idiots, I hate to be so rude, on the internet would be, what the fuck? Maybe John Jones doesn't want to fight. Well, there's less of those idiots now, far less, far more thinkers who are like, wait a second, you say this about everybody. Why? Obviously, John Jones wants to fight, but he wants more money. And then there's a smaller group of, well, he signed a contract. It's like, yeah, but in oppressive practices, there's this thing all happening that suggests that, those contracts and the signing of it, is not, well, he's a grown man, there's all of that, right? And typically, the less money an individual makes and the less sort of control they feel they have in their own life, the more they think that John Jones should just shut up and take what he's given. People who have some control, a little bit of influence in their own business and their own life, they're often more on the side. And people are like, these guys are fucking millionaires. And it's like, yeah, so you're taking the side of the billionaires over the millionaires. If this millionaire is being something, why is the super rich controlling the rich. Like, none of it makes any sense, but we are irrational beings, right? And often the more we can take into account the big picture, the macro, the easier it is to understand. Now, before we go too far, let me also say, all of this is in its own way in 2021, at least temporarily, good. There wasn't a whole lot of shit, on most of the media in the last week or two around fighting. And now everybody's freaking out. White blast Ngannou. I just pulled Junkie up. My buddy John works there. White blast Ngannou. Francis Ngannou reacts. Schilling knocks out a dude. Like, this is good in the short run, right? Everybody's talking. Wait, who's fighting? There's a fight? UFC. Oh, fuck these guys. Fuck Dana. Francis ain't. And all of that, engagement, conflict, controversy. These things are powerful right now. So from a business standpoint, this conversation that I'm having, Ariel coming on saying this is how they behave, all of these things, there's certain things where we're trying to give you a bigger picture, but yet you're still interested. And in fact, in a world where there's not much to talk about, if you had Francis Ngannou versus John Jones, we would be talking about, holy fuck, that's the best fight you could possibly make on earth. Instead, we have a significantly cheaper fight. Ngannou, John Jones, they want 10 million each. Maybe they get 8. That's $16 million. Derek Lewis will be fucking thrilled to get 800,000, and if he, which is a lot of money. I could be an MMA analyst for the next 20 years on that, sitting in my place doing this, right? Like we'd all be very happy to have that. But in a world where this guy has exposed that, you could make $10 million, I think Tyron is getting 2 to 3 million plus pay-per-view points. He never made that in the UFC. He never did. He's fighting a guy who's fucking fought 3 people. 2 of them were like basketball players and internet celebrities. And, has only been fighting at a high level for 5 or 6 years. Like, if you're Tyron, you're like, hey, wait a second. Why the fuck is anybody fighting for a heavyweight? You know what I mean? Like, this is being exposed now out into the world because you can't control the message like you once did, because it's a changing world. It's a changing world with changing media and changing audience and changing, etc. Speaking of audience, we're going to take some questions because I'm starting to talk in circles, as you can see. But what does this mean? It means it's all fucking connected. And what's our lesson? Everything's fucking always connected. And we sit here in our world consuming a thing. Dustin Poirier won because leg kicks. Is Conor McGregor now that he's rich, is he not driven anymore? Those are fucking narratives. These are topics that end up being narratives, but when you pull them all together, and this is our flaw, we'll say, what's the most important thing that's causing this fight to not happen? What's the most important thing for Conor McGregor? None of it, all of it, right? It's all connected. We are in a multi-dimensional universe. The world is not Sports Center. The world is not ESPN. If this guy throws more long bombs, this team will win. That's horse shit, right? If this guy gets more volume, gets the guy on his back foot, distance management, takedown defense, he will win. Horse shit. This is not how the world works. All of these things are connected. And that's why, we see something about the beaches of Normandy, but there's 29 other factors influenced by 100 each that create any scenario. And it's the same thing here. Why is Ngannou have to tolerate a interim title being fought by 2 great fighters? Because of all of this, right? And how does it all structure? How does that one thing end up making sense? We need to control these fighters. Because we live in a world where the business strategy that we have, that I threw behind me, only works if they are underpaid. So they must stay underpaid. We must change. If we're not going to change, we must keep them underpaid. How do we do that? Shit like this, right? So it makes sense. Let's take some questions. Sorry, I didn't mean people. Wow, I sound like Don Fry. What a compliment. It's similar in the art marketing world. You're only worth what you believe you're worth. Okay. Quadrex makes a cool point here. Art, fighting, hip hop, construction. I had my basement done. I'm in Toronto right now, but I have a little home in the country, and I have my basement done. And you know how much it cost? It cost as much as they could fucking get for it. And when you had 4 or 5 people come in, the one guy who said it was going to be 3 times as much. Why was it 3 times as much? Because he's got so much fucking work that he can't even take the time to do it unless he's making enough, because somebody else will pay him that much because he's that fucking good. I didn't use that guy, but he does great work and he's in demand. This is just the world. If you want to buy a house, how much does the house cost? It costs how the housing market works. How does the housing market work? It works based on the belief system of people. It works on how much money they have. It works on recessions, rises, pandemics, all of it, right? It's the same thing here. Everything is connected, right? Humans are nuts. It's true. How about this angle? The UFC has too many fighters under contract. Would the sport benefit from undercard fighters being free agents? I mean, that's so specific that it's impossible to actually answer for me, because there's, no, the sport would, but the companies still have to be successful. That's the other thing. Like, nobody is telling corporations to not make money. They're telling them, to be a monolith, to be a massive thing is not sort of how free competition works. How much should an undercard fighter make? An undercard fighter should make and does make what they can make in the exact environment we have. And so what happens, most people aren't aware of this, but if you take a lesser known top 15 to 20, not quite top 10, with 3 fights in Bellator, something like that, like somebody who's like actually a prospect now on the undercard, somebody in the gym was like, this kid's fucking for real. And oh yeah, shit, he is. Bellator may give him 25 and 25, and the UFC may get 10 and 10, right? A lot of people aren't aware of that. The place where you can negotiate is before signing deals. Now, when we say that, and it's like, John Jones signed a deal, he should take it. It's like, yeah, but the world changed and he changed, and leverage is real, and the ability, and nobody's going to I've signed contracts and not been paid, right? Like, the contracts are just, if you don't deal with a lot of contracts, you think there's some mythical thing. Gene Simmons signed his record deal, and in your mind, they're just a part of business, right? And how and when you sign them, the negotiations do not end just because that's the way they work in movies. They don't. But if you sign a contract now, today, right this minute, it will be very difficult for you to convince me that you didn't understand, or anybody else, what was going on. We know exactly what's going on now. So if you are a 7-0 fighter and you're plodding along and the UFC offers you this, go see what One Championship offers you. Go see what the PFL offer you. Bellator will pay you more. They will. And then decide. Now, once upon a time, there were a lot, and by once upon a time, I mean like 2 years ago, there were lots of fighters who Bellator would say, here's 25 and 25, and the UFC would say, here's our intro 10, 10, and 10, and you have to sign for 5 things, and people would be like, I'm going to do it. My dream is to fight in the UFC. I want to be a UFC champ. That power is starting to change, because you don't have to be that fucking clever to look and go, wait a second, what is a UFC champ, by the way? Cyril and Derek are fighting for one. Does that change anything? Because John Jones isn't. He's John Jones. Wait a second. If it takes me 3 years to get there, how much weirder even is this structure going to be? PFL, I can just go, Bellator will pay me. I can be in the top 10 in Bellator and 2 wins. Sergio Pettis couldn't be fucking happier, right? And Anthony too. I know Anthony lost a split decision in his last fight. Great fight, showed up, had a great fight, got paid like fucking crazy. And it sucks that he lost a fight that I thought he clearly won the first 2 rounds. But at least you can see, if you win, then there's a playoffs, and then you go and there's $1 million. In Bellator, you go from an undercard, the audience is interested, you do well, it doesn't take long until the top 10. From there, you're fighting on a main card on fucking Showtime. You know what the fuck Showtime is. Then you're fighting for a title. It's very much more cut and dried, and you're being paid more. And although the way to tell if somebody's a noob is that they go, the very best fight in the UFC. That's a branding, that's a marketing message. That's not a factual martial arts truth. That's a marketing message you succumb to if you're the person on the internet saying, bro, Bellator's, B League. It's like, fucking tell that to Anthony Johnson, right? Like, tell that to Eddie and tell that to Sergio Pettis. Like, it's just not true, right? So that very, my dream is to be a UFC fighter. Those are the things that are starting to be affected by all of these things, right? That's the thing that you got to understand when the world is changing and the world around you is changing. Again, let's go off onto a tangent for a second here. Where the fuck was bare knuckle 5 years ago? Now, I work for a BKB in England. It was there. It's been there for a long time because bare knuckle in England is a historical thing. BKB, it's called. I think there's a show August 4th or 14th, something like that. I'll be over there, I think. And it's, it has its own tradition and stuff. But bare knuckle in America is growing real fast. Karate Combat debuts this week. I'm working on Karate Combat. It's going to do well, right? And people are going to be really interested. Why? There was no room for that 5 years ago. I don't know how deep in combat sports you are, but trust me, there was no fucking room for these things 5 years ago. Why is there now? Because all of these things that change when you operate like you are still running the thing, you are still a monopoly, you still have all the leverage, you are still cool. UFC is not that cool right now, right? And I mean that knowing that I work covering it on Saturday nights on fucking SportsCenter, and I love my job and I love the fights, but the entity, is not that cool right now. So all of a sudden there's room for, it's very corporate, it's very mainstream, it's very formal. How the fuck did we end up so formal? Like, how the fuck did it end up so formal all of a sudden? And you've got all this audience that originally liked this thing. The original audience liked it because it was edgy, because it was a counterculture, because it was outside the mainstream, because because Joe Rogan was in it and he's fucking different, right? He's still there, but he plays a smaller and smaller and smaller role, which he gets, on pay-per-views, you get to hear him, right? And he's the outlier now. Like, he's all these, everybody else involved is overdressed, over vocal trained, over structured, over formulaic, over, like, what's the word? Lingoed. Everything's fucking lingo. If you don't know the thing, you turn it on, you're like, this sounds like baseball. It's got its own shit. Why is everyone talking the same? Distance management, fucking back foot, front foot. What the fuck are these guys saying? That guy's trying to kick that guy. Can't somebody explain to me why that hurt him? And I'm not trying to talk shit. This is not the fault of any individuals. It is the fault of the machine, right? The machine. It becomes a formula. It becomes Coca-Cola, right? And that was the goal. But as that happens, there's a particular audience who's like, man, I've seen, and brand first. Eventually it's like, okay, I got it. Who are any of these people? What makes her special? Just because she's wearing Nike or, Burger King or, the NFL or whatever. If you go too hard, these things all worked. But, and then the world changes a little bit, right? So now there's room. Now we want something a little edgier. Now we want something a little different. I want something a little more pure martial arts. Thursday night, you're going to turn on Karate Combat. It's not going to look anything like it. It's not going to sound anything like it. It's not going to have the same flavor. And you know what? We like different flavors of wine. We like different flavors of chocolate. When you go to the store, there's not one chocolate bar. It's not fucking O. Henry. There's because people like choice. And the less variation you have, the more homogenous it becomes, the more corporate it becomes. Eventually we're like, oh yeah, I guess. Oh wait, that's a different color. Bellator is different. It feels different. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing, only red. It feels different. PFL does it completely different. All of a sudden you got karate, you got bare knuckle, you got let way, and who the fuck? I commentated a 1,000-year-old Burmese martial art called that way, and people were really interested. Why? Because they're connoisseurs. They don't just want the same thing over and over again, right? Let's take some more comments. Okay, or questions. Does anyone have any questions? Knuckles, yeah. Well, so bare knuckle actually is going back. You know, bare knuckle was once boxing. We called this boxing. You know, then they put gloves on it, and you called that boxing. And we have to call it bare knuckle, but it's just boxing. I watched a Japanese MMA fight recently where they wore gis. That's cool. How fights would change if you added a gi. Yeah, the texture, right? Every variation. So I love the variation. I love the variation. That's what I'm super into now. That's why Bellator feels a little different. So I enjoy, you know, and I get to my main job with the UFC now. I don't have any connection to that company at all, other than the broadcast partner with, and I love that job. I love the job in Canada, but all I got to do is talk about the martial arts in it. I don't have to talk about all the other stuff. But, you know, just a typical Saturday night small show, I don't watch them all anymore because I'm watching all the Bellators. I'm watching and covering karate. I'm watching and covering bare knuckle. I'm watching and covering kickboxing. So, you know, I'm consuming less of that. When I turn it on, I'm like, oh, yeah, this. When the big fights, there's nothing like a UFC big fight. There's nothing like it. They're still the best at that. They're still the best at that, and I get to cover that, and I love it. Yes, I will be on TSN all week. I made a whole bunch of cool stuff around Conor McGregor. Why doesn't the boxing model work for MMA? Of course it does. Boxing model works perfectly. It just MMA came up. You know, again, there are lawsuits claiming that they came up as a company. So it'd be like, why doesn't the cola model work for cola? And it's like, well, because, you know, first Coke and Pepsi came, and then later it took a lot of effort and a long time to go and carve out pieces. Smartly, all credit. This is not, history will look back and say MMA although also was positioned as a sport, it was like the WWE model came first. The boxing model would work perfect, but you can't put the boxing model in automatically when somebody's making billions of dollars off a different model. So it would work great. There are forces that don't want it to work, but of course it would work. Yes, I'll be covering that. Come on, guys. How can we end this confusion among reps and fighters and whether they're grabbing the fence or putting their hand? We cannot. We cannot end that. That's just going to be a thing. And, you know, you can train people better, but then you have to pay them more. Currently, reps get shit money and judges get shit money and have a hard job. And so unless you're going to create a financial incentive for former fighters to go do it or some other incentive, you're just going to have regular people doing their best they can, and human error will occur. Human error. You doing okay, man? Those guys are hanging out. Oh yeah, MMA with the gear. I love the variation, man. I love the variation. So fighters union, the only way to fix compensation. Would that benefit only UFC fighters or one? I doubt it's going to happen. Hey, I think we're doing a podcast today, Big O Podcast. I think we're doing a podcast together today. Big O Podcast. I'm gonna be a guest on his for 40 minutes, I think, today, or an hour or something. But yeah. No, it's not the only way, because if it was, it may not happen, and then they'd be fucked, right? Like, you have to always, that's a way, but it's very difficult. And when we think of some of these things, it's like union, success or failure. This is a thinking that we do a lot. Oh, union failed. If a union is attempted and fails, doesn't actually establish itself, all that effort is not lost. Right? Like, people are protesting things and people say, see, it was a waste of time. It wasn't a waste of time. A guy just came out and said he plays in the NFL, and we all were happy to hear that. All the players were happy. The team was happy. 5 years ago, that wasn't so. Why did that happen? By itself? No, all of the things that seemed to not work. So, you know, education, protest, changing of mind. people change their minds slowly. Humans change slowly. But then there's a snowball effect. And this is the thing, for the sake of being able to see Jorge Diaz and Conor Poirier and have these big fights and have this successful company that we enjoy watching. This is the thing you worry about when you see all of these things all starting to pile up. The UFC can take a big hit if they don't make smart decisions during a period of a lot of conflict and a lot of pressure and a lot of fronts that are coming at them causing problems, right? You have to be able to change. These guys are hanging, which is cool. Rob, what are you talking about? They're still putting on great fights. Yeah, they are putting on great fights. And like, these things are not independent. You know, you can put on great fights and be facing a lot of challenges. You can put on great fights, but also not put on Francis versus John Jones. Like, these are not independent. We are trapped in places where we can't hold conflicting ideas in our head at one time. A lot of us, the world, our culture, it's like they are putting on great fights, but also, you know, they have to put on whatever they can put on. And every fight's a great fight. Every fight between two trained martial artists is a gift. It's a gift. But when you position it as an only, you know, highly anticipated match between two epic warriors, a two-division champ versus a former whatever champ, you start to position that only these things. That's where hype is a problem. You know, the greatest ever versus the best ever. The winner will be the greatest of all time. Well, what about these fights? Are they not special? Yes, they are special. Every fucking fight is a gift. Every time two human beings have actualized their entire potential to the best of their ability on a night to fight in a cage, every single time that's a gift. If we don't think it is, that's the fault of people who are hyping particular things and then inadvertently commodifying the rest, right? This happens. Yeah, maybe they still could. I don't know, but in a time where you're being sued for billions of dollars for behavior that suggests maybe they just stay away from that. How can we end this confusion, refs? We discussed that. Have you got a residency with Game Bread? I'll probably talk to them today and see about doing their next show. Please hang with me. I'm going to grab my dog. The poor thing is never mind. I'm just putting him on the bed. So I got a 15-year-old Chihuahua, and the poor little guy just needs some help sometimes. But yes, Game Bread, I will probably talk with them today. I'd love to do more. And I think everybody seemed very happy. We did that. Sideshow Cell, Slap Fights is growing huge. For me personally, I'm growing apart from MMA due to the watered down content and popularity. I'm not bothered by popularity. I'm happy when Jay-Z becomes huge. I'm not mad at Jay-Z. That's great. The MMA, never mind the UFC, MMA currently doesn't feel cool. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean every MMA show isn't. It doesn't mean that, you know, fucking Conor versus Poirier won't be awesome. It doesn't mean you can't have 2 million people buy it and then we're all excited and the company is successful and everybody's everything's great. But it doesn't feel cool right now. That doesn't mean fucking football's not cool right now, right? Coca-Cola's not cool right now, but it doesn't feel cool right now. So when that's the case, you know, you have to assess where you are, the reality of where you are, and what you do about it. Which business relationship has been most successful for you in the MMA world and why? That's interesting. I think the relationship with the audience has been the most successful for me. Making stuff and giving it away for free has been the most powerful thing for my business, because then you have an audience who's seen 1,000 of your things and appreciates them and likes them, and you didn't ask for nothing in return, and you built a relationship with them. Once you have that relationship, you can then prove to somebody else who's like, yeah, hire this guy. When I go and commentate at Game Bread FC and I do a great job and the audience on the internet is like, fucking Robin Black's really good at this. Why am I actually really good at this? If you agree with that, and not everyone does, because I did 1,000 of them. Thousands, 2,000. I've done 2,200 breakdown videos. You have to get good by doing that. So the relationship with the audience who kept encouraging me to make more, to give. That's the most powerful relationship by far. Do you think Fedor should fight in Bellator Moscow? Who do you think? I'd love to see him fight Barnett. Hey, John Brannigan, what's up? John Brannigan is a designer. He's designed some stuff of mine, and he's done some animated videos that I've done. Give him a follow. I love to see him fight Barnett because I love that for both guys. But I'll take them all. Yep. I've been watching you for years. 205 series around Alvarez Conor was brilliant. Would love to have you on my show sometime. Yeah, sure, man. Just hit me up on Twitter. Sometimes it takes weeks and months for me to coordinate the time. So you have to be super patient. Like Big O, he was super patient. We're going to hopefully get that done today. Unless something changes, because that's the great thing about having many different gigs. I'm super thankful. Remember, I was talking about my biases, and I was like, within my experience working with the UFC, I didn't like it. I didn't like any of the internal, executive horseshit. Figuring out who to like convince that you deserve the honor of getting to work. Like, fuck all that. In 2021, that doesn't make no sense. But having said that, I don't know where I was going with that. Yeah, honestly. Yeah, I don't have no idea where that was going. Maybe it was just being able, I know where I was going. Now I'm thankful for that, because now I ended up over time realizing that if you built a real relationship with a real audience who actually loved your work, that eventually that would take care of itself. And then eventually, all these different companies were like, hey, do you want to come and commentate this? Would you like to do that? Hey, we could really use you on this thing. Hey, do you want to do this kind of stuff? And that to me has been the greatest freedom. The greatest freedom for me is being able to do many, many different things. It's made me understand fighting different, made me understand martial arts different, business different, people different, technology different. It's been the greatest thing. Getting stuck. And that's sort of the thing that you look at with some of these, there's a book called So Good They Can't Ignore You. And it sounds more, go get 'em, Tiger, than it really is. The reason I read it is because I read a book that came later, I think. It was called Deep Work. The guy's name is Cal Newport. Deep Work helps you contextualize how to make bigger, more meaningful work. And it's not easy, because you have to develop the skills and put in the effort and really dedicate to be able to do that. But so then this other book, I was already on the path of doing shit that I like and in a way that I like, but I really liked his stuff. So, and there were elements of it that I wanted to read. And he talked about what makes people the happiest at their work. And a feeling of control is a big one of them. A feeling of control, feeling that you have influence on where your work goes, what you do, what you learn, what you dedicate your time to. And that's a great gift. That's a great gift. Super thankful. Thoughts on Derek Lewis? I love the fight. I know Cyril extraordinarily well because I studied him and analyzed him. Go on Fight Pass and put in Cyril gone TKO. And his first, I think, 3, maybe even 4 fights were on TKO. Got to commentate them. His coach, Fernan Lopez, is a friend, and I've trained with him. And I've analyzed a lot of his fighters' work. I fucking love their game. I love their game. And Derek is awesome. Derek's Derek. It's a really cool fight. Hard fight. Derek Lewis knocking out somebody in the last minute of the last round makes it fucking hard, because now that it's not like, well, we're going to fatigue the big man and it'll get easier. It's like, yeah, maybe don't think that. Fingers shouldn't be on the fence, period. Well, Big Dre, I'm not trying to be critical, but if you fought, you'll know that that's not possible. Like you just, so hopefully me and Big O are on there today. I can't promise I won't fuck something up, because I structure my days, but I've got a lot of partnerships and a lot of gigs and a lot of different jobs that I do. And as you know, Big O, curveballs have hit me. So if you got a residency with Game Bread, yeah, we're working on that. I don't know. I keep fucking with these things. So who knows? What's your advice on how to appreciate our parents more, especially spoiled young adults? The fact that you're asking that is you're already ahead. You know what I mean? You're already ahead. But, honestly, I'll take a second on this. My dog You heard me run over. If you were here, I ran over to help my dog. He's 15. He's old. He's missing all his teeth. His tongue hangs out. And now, when I spend time with my dog, I look at him and I think, okay, he's old. He's going to pass away, and I want to spend some real time appreciating him, thinking about him, petting him, being nice to him. Then not the other day, in the last 6 months, my wife was somewhere and she came in and she said something to me, and I went, and this is how sometimes I'm analyzing my own thinking, which is very valuable. You don't get too far up in there, but you do want to watch yourself and wonder why you think the way you think. It's good. It's how you improve your process in life. And my wife came and said something, and I literally thought to myself, okay, I gotta go do this, help her with whatever it was, but this poor guy's gonna die any second, so I should spend this time. And suddenly hit me, what if you thought that about, and it sounds morbid, but what if you thought that about your parents? What if you thought that about your wife? What if you thought that about your best friend? They could die tomorrow. I don't want to be thinking that. But if you do think that, if you take a moment to think that, you will appreciate them that much more. If you knew your parents were going to die tomorrow, you would spend today with them so different. Well, they are going to die one day. So why don't you just spend that? It's a thought thing. It's a thought game. It's not most of these things are fucking what they call inside jobs. If you're going to be happy, if you're going to find serenity and contentment, if you're going to find success, if you're going to find enough presence in the moments to enjoy your life, that goes on indoors. That goes on inside the mind. That is not fucking actions as much as thoughts. Thoughts on Derek Lewis, we got that. Fingers shouldn't be in the fence. Yes, we are. Yes, we discussed that. I'm going to call them today and see what we see on JRE again. So any idea when your episodes are informative and entertaining. Joe and I are friends, but Joe has a fuckload of friends. I'm very he and I will occasionally be texting, sometimes for 20, 30 minutes. There's been a few times in the middle of the night we're fucking chatting about stuff. When I'm in Austin, he's always like, bro, when you're in Austin, let's get together. But he is so fucking busy that I don't know if or when that will ever happen again, but I hope it does, because those hours sitting with Joe are very revealing for me personally too. It's not live. It'll be released Friday morning, wherever you get your podcast. The Big O podcast. If we fuck something up today, we're going to do it Thursday, and hopefully I'll still get it live Friday, because that period. So I book my periods of my day with some flexibility. So I'm guesting on podcasts in this chunk. But those things are the first that have to go if Karate Combat contacts me, or if all of a sudden Bellator needs something that I can do, or they want to meet with me about a new idea. Then the thing I have to bump is that flexible spot. Scheduling your day is super important. Pluto, yes, that's my dog. Domino effect might happen if another MMA fighter call out Woodley. Woodley is, I think, just gonna fight this fight and make money, which I would do if I was him. Mad about MMA. This is my buddy Mark Andre. Yeah, I need some NFT action. I just make a bank. I don't know what the fuck we're gonna do. Oh yeah, we talked about that. Excellent answers, Robin. I relate. I give up free work. Free work's super important to a point. Helps incredible. Free work is super important. I've done this before where I'm like, hey, I was going to make a logo. I'll go on Twitter and I'll say, hey, I was going to make a logo. If anybody wants to whip one up for me, I'll share it and I'll tag you and I'll link you. And people will be like, bro, pay the artist. And they're like, I'm an artist. I work for free a lot. If it's art I want to do, and I want to do it because I'm going to learn something, I'm going to gain some value, or I'm going to meet some people, I'm going to gain experience I want, I fucking work for free still. To this day, I work for free. But it's easier to do when you are already, doing well. And, you could, if you go to shoprobinblack.com, get a t-shirt. I don't know how else to do it. And then put in the thing, hey, I want to watch your autograph on something. You can, no problem. We'll do it. I can do it too if you DM me, but I don't know why you would want me to scroll I literally write it like this. I print it. But I always draw a fist, which I used to draw when I was a little kid. And when I was a kid, if I was knew that I actually people wanted my autograph and I got to draw it with a fist, I would have thought that was so cool. Do you think we'll see Bellator in the UK this year? Yes, I do think we will see Bellator in the UK this year. Thanks. My dog's an idiot, and I love him. Absolutely true. Okay. Very enlightening. Thanks. Thoughts on 5 versus 5 team MMA? I like all the variation. My obsession is with martial arts, not MMA. Like MMA is one type of the way that combat is expressed, and I do like it. And I love, covering the UFC fights for TSN. I love covering Bellator on my social and their social. I do love MMA, but I like the variation. The more different ways, different flavors, different textures, different types, the better. That one seems obviously very dangerous, so there are other elements, but I do like it. What apps and methods to use to schedule your days or weeks? There's a book called, it's in the other room, the Get to Work book. I physically like it. I physically read it. I also use Google schedule or calendar or whatever, but I like this physical thing on Instagram. Get to Work book. You can see it. It's they sell it. It's really cool. I really like it. As a fan, what would your dream rule set be? Honestly, my dream rule set is no rules, but I realize that actually can't really be implemented. But from pure martial arts standpoint, that is my cool fist. Thanks. That is my dream rule set. So anyways, what did we learn today? We'll definitely take more questions, but what did we learn today? I don't know if we learned a great deal, to be honest, and that's okay. We hung out and it was fun. But everything is connected, right? And maybe that's the most useful thing. It doesn't matter what you read, what you buy, what you're looking at, what you're analyzing, what you're curious about. I like turtles too. Just reject the narratives that you see in a lot of places. It's like, this is the most important thing. This is the best thing. What's the key to it? How, when we see things on the news, when we put things in a sports broadcast, when we put things in all of these things, we try to make complex things easy, and that's cool. Makes sense, but we've done it to such a degree that we actually think the world isn't complicated. And so we misunderstand the world. We think that we can narrow it into what's the greatest of all time. Oh, what's the greatest juice ever? What's the greatest vegetable? What's the number one thing you should do with your diet? This is all fucking just the way the internet works. This is not how life works. This is how people get clicks and likes and opinions. Everybody loves opinions, and they're cool. I'll give one example. For us, as a friend of mine, somebody I look up to greatly, and for us said 99. If Nate Diaz would defeat 99 out of 100 people if fights were had no time limit. It's like, yeah, more or less agree. Maybe it's 97. I don't know. But that's news. And for us, probably it's just like, wow, I say a lot of really smart things and today people. But why was it news? Well, it was a strong statement that creates good debate. Oh, bullshit, man. I think, Derek Lewis, like, great. So it meets the criteria. It has famous people. It's easy to discuss. It's easy to debate. It makes a good headline. It's said by a smart guy. For us, is brilliant. He said 1,000 things that are more intelligent or meaningful, probably in the very podcast or interview that they took that one, but that's the one, right? And that's the one that will be pulled out, and that's the one that will be discussed. And that is shaping how we think. Memes, narratives, buzzwords, these things are shaping how we think. So yeah, we have to be very careful, and we have to think dimensionally. We go back to it, and that was the very thing we were talking about today. Was Francis Ngannou and John Jones. That's the fight that makes sense logically. That's the biggest fight, the best fight. We'd all be talking about it. Be selling pay-per-views. money would be made no matter how much you had to pay them. Why wouldn't we do that? Why would there be an interim title? Well, we got historically, the company has prioritized control over, over make the biggest fight. Don't make the biggest fight. Create scenarios in which we maintain our control in a changing world. It's a very changing world because, there are lawsuits that suggest that this very behavior of, control happens because of unfair business practices. Currently, again, we're going to recap, and this whole making banners thing has been very helpful for me. Currently, there are other options, both for fighters that are, either young. Where would you sign if you were that kid? Aaron Pico looks like a genius right now, and Patchy Mix and all these, Sergio Pettis and Anthony Pettis, they look like geniuses right now. They made more. Anthony Pettis has more followers and more people paying attention to him. He lost. I thought he won his last fight. He's starting his own show. I don't know if people have seen Showtime MMA, which I'm not trying to give anything away, but pretty good chance I'll be commentating that one too. From discussions I've had, it's not a done deal yet, but that's what they'd like, and me too. He's fucking killing it. Sucks that a judge, two judges, gave the other guy the fight. I'm sure that's going to bother him. I haven't talked to him, but I'd be irritated if I was him. But he also practices acceptance. But he made a lot of money. He grew by doing this. This guy is the guy who started this slippery slope, to be honest. They paid him. They said, this will be a one-off. We have a structure in which we maintain control at all costs, but Conor is so big and so influential and so powerful at the time, Jose Aldo, Eddie Alvarez, Nate Diaz, that era, that they had to open up the bank. They were like, we're only doing it once, but when you did it once, now it can be done. And now that's why John Jones wants money. That's why, these fighters are wanting money. And then this guy comes along and makes it super mainstream to shit on the UFC for how much they pay their fighters. And don't forget, the current business model that they have doesn't work if they suddenly double the amount of money that the fighters make. So they either have to change or they have to fight the friction that's happening right now. And that's what you're seeing. And it makes sense, right? Nobody's mad. Nobody's judging. Not judging. Why would you judge them? I don't own that corporation. I don't have shares in it. It's theirs. It's mine. But so we're just trying our best to get a picture of it. Maybe they will become friends after this. This is, you make an interesting point. It sounds like we're going to we're joking here, but I've got an interview with Stephen Thompson. If you go to Haymakers YouTube, if it isn't up now, it'll be up in the next probably 36 hours. And we were talking about Chris Weidman broke his leg in half. His life could be better from the day his leg broke in half. There could be something happens in relationships that with his family. There could be a business thing that he comes up with or does by sitting in his bed for weeks or a month or whatever. Also on this way, maybe he didn't break his leg. Maybe he won that fight, and on the way home, his car gets hit by something and his wife loses her leg, or is killed. You know what I mean? Like the flow chart of leg being broken doesn't mean everything goes to shit. Your life could be better because you don't know where this was going. Now you won the fight, the next fight you're in, something bad happens. Like this is life, right? And it might suck. Maybe you don't ever get to fight that guy. Maybe John Jones never gets to fight for the UFC title. Maybe he doesn't make $8 more million and has to live with what he has, but he makes the greatest friendship of his whole life. And that sounds like a joke, but it's not. This is life. You only have one. I did watch the Bloomberg video on the lawsuit. Shit like that is this is all happening simultaneously, and it's not disconnected. I don't know. If you mean my friend Jesse, Big Cat, he's actually small. I don't know. What's your opinion on what's best for fighters with their lacking pay? I don't know, man. I don't know. Right now, the best thing to do is always the best thing to do if you have the time. Life is not just, well, let's do this. What if we do that? Make sure, you can't just do everything. There's something called opportunity cost. The most valuable resource that you have is time. I may only live 6 more weeks. At the most, I'm only going to live 40 years, right? And this is true of you too. You might only live 4 more days. Nobody wants that, but that could be true. So you have to live with intention, right? And that intention is, within reason, gather the information that you can gather, knowing that there's an opportunity cost for doing that. Because you can also just say, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be decisive about it. And I'm going to take what I get and work the best I can within the decisive paradigm. You can also gather all the information. Takes time, and what you may find as you gather information is you realize you don't know that much, and now you gather more, and all of a sudden it takes more and more time. And then make an informed decision. You can also just literally say, this feels right, and I'm going to do it, and then go off on that road. That works too, man. That works. There's no right or wrong. There's something called choiceless awareness. And when you get to a point that you feel like comfortable in your skin, where you've gathered information, you've allowed yourself to flow, you have enough confidence in who you are, where you do something called choiceless awareness, you just go, Choiceless awareness is not the same as just fucking taking as it comes. It's becoming so informed, so prepared, so more and more actualized, so that you understand the world as to a higher degree maybe than you did before, that you can trust your own behavior. You can just trust your behavior, and whatever you choose will be right. What's the best? Hey, you can absolutely go and say, Michael Chandler should regret nothing. And people like Michael Chandler should regret nothing. We go, we fight. Like, look at Michael's path. He's at the final fight of his contract. He's going to be offered a really good contract with Bellator. Nope, I'm going to fight it out, and I'm fighting Ben Henderson. Fucking knocks out Ben Henderson with I believe, a left hand from southpaw. I could be wrong. I forget. Kick, yeah, I think it was. Now he's open to negotiation. The UFC offers him a deal. He goes and he takes it. He wins a fight immediately. He gets the next one. Backing out, he gets hit with a hook. Where is he now? He's wealthy. He's successful. He's a great athlete. He's got a great family. He lost a fight. Big fucking deal. Next fight, he'll go and he'll win. How the audience views it, Michael would have gathered all the information, but he would have also trusted that whatever you do, when you're doing it right, whatever you do, you can make it work. You regret nothing. You go in and you make choices. And as you make the choices, new choices are presented. You cannot regret, well, I decided to go, and Michael's one example, and he's going to continue to have a successful, wonderful life with a great family. And, bad things happen to great people, but generally speaking, life is going to go good. At no point do you ever go back and go, oh, maybe I should have signed with Bellator. They could have matched it. You could have done that, and then, driving to a different training session on a different day, you got hit by a bus. Like, there is no point regretting. You study, you go and you look, you assess your situation, you assess your process, but you regret nothing because you don't know what the other choice was. If John Jones never fights, he shouldn't regret it, because who knows, he'd have fought and got caught in an avalanche driving home and some side road, or the money that he made, he bought a house that ended up having fucking shit in the wall that made his family sick. Like, you don't fucking know where it's going, so you don't regret these things. You gather more information, become more comfortable, understand the world around you, be connected to the moments a little more, and then you live your fucking life. Thanks, Bisping's Moozy Koozie. I don't know what a Moozy Koozie is, but I got a feeling I think I know what it might be. Hey, Simeon, if you want to go back and watch this one, I'll spell it right out for you to the best of my ability. Should fighters in the UFC be allowed to have outside sponsors on the fight shorts? Well, allowed. I mean, allowed, like, it ain't our business. We don't run it, I get where you're coming from, Thomas. Would it be better? Does it seem fair? But here's the thing. You own, let's say it's the UFC, but it could be any business, right? You own the UFC and I own Bellator. If you say, I'm going to go, we're going to make a lot more money with Venom or whatever, That's just the truth. That affects me now. I'm like, well, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to allow the fighters to do that. And that will be one more thing that over time, every decision you make as a business, as a person, as a husband, as a wife, as a family, as a kid, as a business person, as an employee, every decision you make has other effects, right? This is part of the conversation. The point of this conversation today is that shit isn't singular like it's presented on ESPN or Fox News or MSNBC or CNN or whatever. This is this and that means that. This is not the real world. When you say we will do this thing with fight shorts, they can't have it, you create a dynamic in which somebody else, that Bellator, can say yes. You know how much money Sergio probably made off his fight shorts? I don't know, but a substantial amount, right? So you create a dynamic. This is one, we were talking about biases, and my bias for having a pro UFC view, partially because I'm employed by the broadcast partner and because I fear repercussions, because that's something they do intentionally. But they have one of the, and then one of the other side where I'm like, fuck these guys. They have created their own business strategies where they sell digital rights. So they have a UFC guy, does a jumping spinning kick. They sell that to ESPN, TSN, BT Sports, whatever, for a lot of money. When they do that, they have to defend that, which means they have to come after me and fucking take down my Instagram if I put it up. I didn't understand that the way I do in the early days. So I was like, fuck these guys. This is crazy. It's 2019. Why would anyone do that? I'm like a stakeholder in the business of martial arts. I'm an ally. Why would they fuck me? Well, over time, I have to realize that's their business. They do it that way. And, I'm the one who has to react accordingly. Now, when they do that, you slowly make people that are allies like me kind of be like, fuck these guys. No big deal. If it's just me, I only have 250,000 followers. 40,000 on fucking YouTube, right? Maybe 150,000 on Instagram. I don't have that many. Brendan Schaub has 6 million. You fuck Brendan Schaub, now you got another 6 million. A guy who is now not purposely saying fuck these guys, but you've taken what could and would have been an ally and kind of made him ever so slightly irritated and or an enemy. Now when he talks to his 6 million audience, just the human bias, he doesn't even have to sit there and go, I'm going to fuck these guys. He could do that. I don't know. But the human bias is like, I fucking hate those guys. And then somewhere in the back of his mind, they've irritated. Now his filter is telling 6 million people something negative. And hey, I'm just saying, like I said, I don't, I'm a niche within a niche. I'm a specialized thinker. I'm an analyst of martial arts. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a fucking, interviewer. Like, I analyze martial arts. Here I am talking, doing my best to try to be as fair as possible. Now you got Ariel. Ariel has, I don't know, 10 million followers. They fucked Ariel a lot over the years. Now, there's an easy discussion along the way because he's also an entity. He has benefited by doing certain things that fucked them. Like saying, hey, Brock Lesnar is going to be on a thing. They're like, fuck that guy. We pay his paychecks. We asked him not to do that. He did that. But regardless of where and how and who does what, you fuck that guy enough, the back of his mind, again, he doesn't have to intentionally go, yeah, fuck you guys. Just in the back of his mind, he's a human. In the back of his mind, it's like, I have a negative filter through which he's looking at these guys. Now he's got 10 million fucking followers, and you fuck that guy. And probably he fucked them. He is not an innocent being in this. He's an entity, but he's one guy, and he has an audience, and they love him. And they're not innocent, but they're going to end up, he's the one with the message. He's the one speaking to the audience. He's speaking to a specific audience. They're going to regret that. They are. All of these things happening simultaneously. You got multiple shareholders, stakeholders, they call them. Shareholders means you own some of the company. Stakeholders means you have a deep connection to this business and influence on it, and it influences you, whatever. It's a general term. All these stakeholders, you've got lawsuits, you've got your own fighters, you've got the audience, you've got managers now. Fucking Dana told off the um, disingenuously Francis's manager, and he's like, "Fuck you! You gonna blackball me, or maybe I'll show everything here." Like, you can't control the message anymore, and so it's a tough one right now. Do you drink coffee? Fucking rights, I drink coffee, Johnny. Connor wins versus Dustin. He probably faces Oliveira if he beats him. He doesn't probably face Oliveira. This another thing. Everything affects everything. So you're like, fuck you, Ariel Helwani, we're going to get you. And he's like, well, I don't know. Me and my 10 million audience, now I don't feel connected to you at all. I can just say what I like, right? Hey, we're just going to have interim belts all the time, wherever, whenever we want, whenever it suits us. Really? Because now that belt is less appealing to Conor McGregor or the young fighter who used to take $10,000 for a entry contract because he wanted the UFC belt. Doesn't have the same cachet. These moves all affect each other. Everything affects everything, right? Everything's all connected. So there's no reason that he could face Oliveira if he feels like it, but he can also say, Nate Diaz, where are you at? And don't be surprised if Conor wins, and there's no guarantee Conor going to win either. I assure you. Also, if Dustin could win, he could be like, Oliveira, I want that belt. He could also be like, Nate Diaz, where are you at? Because that's $6 million or $3 million or whatever, right? Nate, what are your next upcoming interviews? What are your current goals, dreams in life, professionally or personally? So interviews on Haymakers on YouTube. It's one word, Haymakers. I got Stephen Thompson coming up today or tomorrow. Dan Lambert, coach of ATT. I think I'm chatting with Boss Rutan this week because both of us, I'm not on Karate Combat this week, but Boss is the anchor of the show. And goals and dreams. Personally, I want to have a child with my wife, and that's the imminent goal. Dream life, but professionally, man, I'm pretty happy. Like, I don't want for much now. I get to, all day, every day, I get to analyze fighting. Every now and again, I get to come speak openly and honestly about shit that I'm interested in, and without any editing. I make a really good living getting to do shit I like, and I get to travel. I'd like to commentate more. I'd like to do color commentary, maybe in the Europe shows for Bellator. Like, I'd like to be doing more color commentary. I think I'm good at it. I think the audience knows I'm good at it. I think I bring something of value, and I'd like to do more of that. But I'll survive if I don't. I get to do some, and I enjoy it. What happened with Ariel and ESPN? I don't know, but they offered him a pay cut to stay, which anybody in television or media knows. For a guy who's increased his value, is a polite way of allowing him, which is very nice of them, to be honest. Whatever is going on in there, whether it's fucking Disney, Dana, the UFC, them, something, it was very kind to them and very cool. And he and they end up being, it was a very classy way to be like, fuck, we're fucked here. They were fucked. Ariel's the guy with the leverage and the freedom. So I think he's probably, and again, I don't know. But looking from the outside, I think he gets to move on to make more money with more freedom in a very clean way from them. So I think it kind of worked out good for everybody. Do you want a child? It's a girlfriend too. I don't have a girlfriend. I have only a wife, but she's my girlfriend. Awesome to see you on Karate Combat. Sensei Seth, what's up? Yes, I'm on Karate Combat. Karate Combat debuts this week, Thursday, on CBS Sports in America. In the rest of the world, some other countries, but Canada and some other places, it'll just be on karate.com Thursday night. The first couple episodes I'm not on, but you'll see me, and it's fucking great. It's really great. The way you think has always been intriguing to me. Thanks. I know when I watch you that my thoughts and preconceived notions change. Oh, that's a really cool thing to say. What kind of coffee is that? It is Starbucks. I'm not a big Starbucks guy, but it's, my wife was going to work this morning, and so we got it. Boss and Robin, fuck yes. Yeah. Me and Boss are going to chat on Haymakers sometime this week. I'm just kidding about the girlfriend. Keep on your toes. Keep you on your toes. Thank you. What do you like to listen to music-wise? Actually, I like older things now. And that's not, maybe it is because I'm old, but also the process through which a lot commercial music is made now is not a very artistic process. It's a commercially driven process, so I don't come across a lot of it that I tend to like. You know, it is older music I like. I've actually been kind of getting into Miles Davis because I like the way when I look back at how he thinks. That he had drug problems at times and stuff, but how he thinks about art. So I've been kind of getting into that. So I think we'll take one or two more questions or thoughts, and then I'm going to book it. And please feel free to hit me up on Twitter or Instagram with any thoughts about this. The biggest takeaway today, I'm hoping, is in process, in how we think. Break away from the narrative-driven thing. Dana said this guy said that, Francis is this, Cyril gone that, John Jones this. These are narratives. Everything, you know, lawsuit this, that's not fair, this, and anything emotionally driven or anything overly controversial, and you're getting away from the truth. The truth is nuanced, the truth is multidimensional, the truth is sophisticated, and that's how we have to look at things. So you take all these outside things and bring them together, and you have a better idea of how life works. I'm gonna do one of these again literally tomorrow. Because it's been really fun. It's been good for me. I've been a little bit too, you know, one fight at a time, one phrase at a time, one knockout at a time oriented. And this kind of dimensional thinking is super valuable for me. Very, very helpful. Everyone hit thumbs up on the video. Thanks so much. Okay, 3 or 4 more questions or thoughts. And I know people are leaving comments and compliments, but questions, if you got any, I'll take them. There's zero emotion, feeling, love, pain, desire, any human realness in modern music. It's just standard beats, simplistic lyrics to repeat. Yes. So I wouldn't say zero, because they're still human beings that are trying to you know, get their point through. It is very tricky when you are a person stuck in a dynamic that doesn't allow you to be artistic as much. You're still trying to fit it in. You know, it's oh, this is cool. So Sweeney versus Franco, that's BKB. If it's BKB_official on Twitter and Instagram, and it's just at BKB on Facebook. That's a brilliant fight. This is some of the best fights in the world. BKB out of London. I just love the show. Very difficult to say, and you know, that's a really interesting one. Again, you know, who you got, and I know where you're going with this. I know you're really just stimulating conversation, but we know nothing about either of these guys. Now we can say, well, Robin, you commentated like 7 of Jimmy Sweeney's fights, or 6, and 4 of Franco's. You know Franco, you know them very well, right? No, I don't. I know who they were. I know what they were. I know how they acted. I know how they behaved. Some of that will inform how they fight, but not all of it. I know aspects of their game, but this is, again, something we do. You know, this guy likes to throw bombs. This guy is a great wrestler. Humans are ever changing. You are not fixed. You are not a fixed quantity. You are an ever-changing thing based on your new knowledge, experiences, preparation. And so are they. And if you think of these people, Mike Tyson throws big, mean hooks. Well, he could be something totally different if he chooses to. Also, purple sweatpants and not matching purple t-shirt. Not sure exactly how that ended up happening, but you know, I was going to say I'm sorry, but I'm not. You know, are you going to do any research, in-depth elaboration of Conor or Dustin, their mental aspects of coming fight? Yes, I'm trying to get more and more into what is, and less into my opinion of things based on limited information. And that's difficult, but it's a worthwhile purpose. You know, I do love watching Chael, Bisping, people like that have hot takes. I love seeing, for, you know, a quote from somebody saying, you know, what they think, a provocative statement. But to me, that's old school television production. I don't want to do that. I want to get away from that. I want to get into what is. I want to get into as close to the searching to get closer to truth, not further away from truth. And it's very difficult to do. And so yes, I will be looking more into that, but I'm going to try to do it from, a different angle if I can. If you want to hear some different music, I created a medieval cover, Bardcore. That's really cool. That's very cool. Share it in the thing for sure. Do you believe an MMA union or association will ever happen? No, I don't. I don't believe it will probably ever happen, but that's okay. I don't think one will need to happen if there continues to be, as weird as this sounds, this kind of shit happening. That kind of shit happening will cause, people to discuss it. At some point, there'll be enough pressure. We talked about this, business model only works if the fighters are underpaid. And I don't mean forever. I just mean the current business model. Business models can be changed and are changed as things change. If the world ran out of sugar, candy business would change. If the world ran out of corn, the fucking Doritos business model would change, right? Business models can change, and some companies successfully change their business model. But currently, this business model works with the fighters getting paid less than their market value, as dictated by Jake Paul and Anderson Silva fighting the other weekend, and Tyron Woodley's purse, and what some Bellator fighters are getting paid, and what Anthony Pettis is getting paid in PFL, and what Rory McDonald is getting paid in PFL, and what Bellator is paying Anthony Johnson. According to that market, the UFC is underpaying their fighters, and they have to continue to do that to run the business model that they currently run. So they can either resist change or change. At some point, and the longer you resist it, the shittier you look. At some point, that change has to happen. And it ain't going to just happen because they're like, well, fuck it, let's give these guys lots of money. It's going to be hard. So I don't know. But I don't think it will result in this. I just think we are going to be having more and more competition. And so as a result, more and more fighters will go to Bellator. More and more fighters will take these boxing matches, check out Yane's YouTube channel if you want to hear some Bardcore. Thanks, everybody. Thanks. It sucks to leave when there's a bunch of people hanging out and we feel like we're just getting started. But at the same time, I got a whole bunch of shit to do. I'm doing here's some of the work I'm working on. Doing a Conor McGregor, we call it The Path. He's the guy who lost last time. So what could he or would he do differently to increase his likelihood of defeating Dustin Poirier? Other times I'll do Dustin Poirier won the last time I did, what does Dustin Poirier have to do to defeat Conor McGregor? So we did that. I also have a chat with Chael that I taped yesterday. That's going to be on TSN. And then I have some conversation. Somebody asked about the mental aspects. I have some conversation with a sports psych consultant, David Mullins, and a professor of psychology, my friend, Dr. Deb Konsky. I got to work on that. So all of that is for TSN, covering the great UFC. Just because I'm analyzing, changing business strategy in relation to art and sport doesn't mean I don't fucking love Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier at UFC 262 or whatever number. Is it 262? 264? 264. And so I'm going to work on that. I got some Bellator stuff to do. Karate Combat's coming up in 2 days. I'm going to build some stuff for Haymakers. So I got a lot of work to do. I was supposed to go on Big O's podcast. Hopefully we'll get to do that today. Otherwise, we'll do it Thursday. Got to run. Robin, thanks for a brilliant stream. Big love to you, your wife, and Pluto. Everybody, please share. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. Thanks for the stream, Robin. Have a great day. All right, everybody, please share. If you dug it, please recommend my YouTube channel, but recommend it to people who like meandering thinking of this nature. As you see, the typical, while we're on this topic, people are sometimes like, hey, you want to go in depth into Cyril Gane versus Francis Ngannou? And it's like, to me, 20 or 30 minutes on theories of that fight or things they've done before or whatever feels disingenuous. Because I started to think about it over time, and I was like, why do we do that? We do it to sell things. We do it to sell pay-per-views. We do it to get people to watch stuff. We do it to create engagement. Are we doing it because it's truthful? Are we doing it because there's something really true to be learned here? What is our motivations? Because there's really no reason to just take a single fight and then, only analyze it from 27 angles, many of which is just our opinion. We do that because we're trying to sell a fight this weekend. I don't work for these people, so I don't need to do that. I can find the roots and the angles and the particular views that are feel more truthful or more interesting to me or follow my curiosity. I don't need the structure of this weekend we've got an epic battle between two warriors, the striker versus I don't need to fucking do any of that. And most of it is very dated thinking anyways. So busy guy, huge fan, Robin Black. When I hear you break down fights and hyping, I love your stuff. Thanks, man. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate all the kind stuff. I really do. Robin Black Martial Arts on Instagram. ShopRobinBlack.com. If you want a Bink shirt, ShopRobinBlack.com, or enjoy the hostilities, or any of my other t-shirts, Hot Lava. ShopRobinBlack.com. Robin Black MMA on Twitter. Robin Black Bink on TikTok. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do that. I don't know what else to say. This is what people do at the end of their things. I never do it, but it feels natural. ShopRobinBlack.com. You want a t-shirt. Otherwise, thanks, everybody. Thanks for sharing. Much love. Black out.